Hello, Kelly Bear here. Welcome to my channel. This is my third time trying to film this bloody video. Just gonna say. I tried filming it yesterday off the back of the video that I would have previously uploaded. And then I've just tried filming it again. It is so bright now. Like, first there's not enough light, now there is just too much light that the camera just wasn't focusing and everything was blown out and you couldn't see shit. It was terrible. So I have put the curtain back up. You know, the light is a bit better now. Hopefully you'll be able to see the artwork. I don't look quite so ghostly. And yeah, I'm just going to crack on. So this is, get to all the decks that came into my collection in 2022. This was the first time since 2018 that I really just sort of had a real kind of like all the decks type like buying year, and I did slow down by sort of the end of spring, beginning of summer. I did have other decks come in, but at a much slower pace. I have tried to arrange it in roughly the order that they came into my collection, but I don't know if they are like exact in the same order. And to be honest, I couldn't be asked to like go through all my emails and everything and my Instagram posts to try and work out the exact date of each one, because like as long as it's sort of, even to be honest, it doesn't even matter if it's in order or not, does it? I have a not unsubstantial pile of decks right here next to me. It's a mixture of Tarot, Oracle, and one Lenormand, and a mixture of indie and mass market. And I'm just going to start right at the beginning of the year, in January, which is when my birthday is, and these two were birthday gifts. So the first one is the Oak, Ash and Thorn Tarot. This was sent to me by the lovely Stephanie Burrows at Three Trees Tarot. The artwork is by Adam Ohlers. It's absolutely stunning, and it's, you know, it's based on the Rider-Waite-Smith system. Actually, I'm not going to hold up the whole deck because that's just as accident waiting to happen, and my hand, it's not, I'm just trying to like not put too much strain on my hand, but it's a stunning deck. It features all animals. There's no humans in this deck at all. It's a very sort of quite a muted palette. It has quite a storybook, fairy tale type feel to it, illustration style, and it's really beautiful, and it features animals that I am familiar with being here in the UK. So we've got hares, and we've got foxes and squirrels and crows. I believe it's crows. They look like crows. They don't have the nose feathers on their beaks. Have I seen any of them in flight? Yeah, they're crows. Looking at the tail shape, they look like crows. Ravens have wedge-shaped tail feathers. But it's really sweet. I do still struggle to read with it. And I feel like this is a deep dive deck that I'm going to have to sort of really sit with, because although it's Smith-Waite based, and although I love animal decks and I love all of the artwork, for some reason I'm not connecting with it in the way that I want to, you know, so it's one that I'm going to have to devote a bit more time to going forward, because you know, the whole production value of it is, and the ethos behind it is really great. It's all sort of eco printed, eco cardstock. Yeah, Stephanie has really stuck to her guns on what she envisioned. And then there's the sister deck, Smoke, Ash and Thorn. I don't have that one, but that is also really beautiful. As I said, artwork by Adam Ohlers. The other gift was one that was on my wish list that my mum bought for me for my birthday, and it is the lovely Laura Tempest Sacros Liminal Spirits Oracle. I really like Laura Tempest Sacros. I think I haven't watched any of her videos for a while. I think she's still uploading to YouTube, I'm not sure, but I follow her on Twitter. I haven't read anything. I've got her Sigil Witchery book, but I haven't read the Weave the Liminal, which is what this deck is linked to. And then she's got the book Anatomy of a Witch, which I also have not read, but there's a corresponding oracle which I would also like. And she's got another new book out, which is like a sister book to Sigil Witchery, as in like it's that lovely square shape, and I believe it's a really nice red colour, and that's coming out, and I can't remember what it's about. Maybe spell work, or basically I want them all. But yeah, this is a really good oracle because it has a structure to it. It has suits, and it's all based around liminal spaces and liminal spirits, liminal things, the spirit of the liminal. I've not read the book. I imagine reading the book would give me a deeper connection to this deck. This was a deck I used quite a bit at the beginning of the year, so I got it in January. This is one of the cards that I remember pulling at the beginning of the year, but then and used through to spring, but then kind of like forgot about. I love this goat. I love him. I love him. Look at his little face. I just love goats anyway. They're such little fucking chaos demons. Yeah, so this is the only one that sort of feels a little strange out of the animals in the deck. But it also gives me, you know, Guillermo del Toro's Pan's Labyrinth, or the Labyrinth of the Faun, to give its correct name. They translated it weird into English. He's not actually meant to be Pan in the film, according to Guillermo. He is literally a faun. Love that film. Just love Guillermo del Toro. I mean, I've spoken about my love of Guillermo del Toro multiple times. Oh my god, what did I watch? I watched the Pinocchio that came up on Netflix last week. Oh, loved it so much. I still haven't watched The Cabinet of Curiosities though. That's on my to-watch list as well. I'm saving that one in case next year is really depressing and I need something magical and weird and creepy to watch. Okay, so those were the birthday presents, and then I used some Christmas and birthday money because I saw 3 decks that were on a really good deal. The first one, I believe, I saw someone doing a walkthrough of. I can't remember who it was, but it's the Cthulhu Dark Arts Tarot. I don't know a huge amount about H.P. Lovecraft, other than, you know, he was a bellend. But I really just was really drawn to the artwork of this deck. The cards are huge, but it puts me in mind of like the old Italian decks, you know, like the huge Visconti decks. Which I don't have any of, which is a shocker really, isn't it? I really should get a Visconti some point in the new year. But the artwork is stunning, and obviously based around H.P. Lovecraft's work. So, I mean, the tower. This looks a lot like the photography of a photographer I follow on Instagram and on Twitter called Breezy. He does these really beautiful atmospheric dreamlike photos, and he does a lot of night photography with really interesting lighting. He also has some really beautiful sets of like daytime photography in desert landscapes, sort of Dust Bowl, you know, abandoned gas stations kind of thing, and also cityscapes that have this like candy coloured haze about them. Absolutely stunning. Anyway, that's beside the point. So the main details are in the majors and the courts. It's very, very intricate artwork, and obviously being huge cards, it's very difficult to really show the whole thing on camera, but it's really, really intricate. I love that it's cats instead of dogs here for a change in the moon card. But I didn't work with it. I put it at the bottom of one of my storage boxes and like totally forgot about it, if I'm being perfectly honest. My plan originally was to get it out in October and also purchase some Lovecraft short collections and just read them and like use this deck for October, and I totally forgot about that plan because squirrel brain. So next October. But yeah, it's the only thing I don't like about it is the fact that all of the suits, so here you go, the wands, the cups, let's find some pentacles, hold on, pentacles. The background colour is the same. It's a grey, a marbled grey, and I love this marbled effect, marbled paper effect. But I feel like I did do some readings with this at the beginning of when I first got it, and yeah, I felt it could have done with having a different colour background just for the suits to colour coordinate them. But maybe the artist's vision was that it was all meant to be just very dark and grey, and you know, so that would just be my one comment on that. Otherwise, it looks cool. Oh, I'm gonna have to try and keep space here. So the next deck that I got was these. I mean, these 3 decks that I'm showing you now, they were all like at a really good price. I think the Cthulhu one was about £11, and I was like, well, they're just giving it away. I'll be rude not to order it. Same with this one. This was reduced to £8.50. I was like, yes. I had wanted it for ages. It was on my wish list. It's a Marseille based deck, and it is the Tattoo Tarot, Ink and Intuition. I do also have the 8 coin Tattoo Tarot, which is a Smith-Waite based Tattoo Tarot. But you know, I obviously wanted Tattoo Tarots because there's kind of, you know, I do like some tattoos myself. But yeah, it's got a really limited colour palette. I do wish we had like some racial diversity in this deck, but it's this whole argument I think that artists use, that it's like, well, I'm using a limited colour palette, and they use the colour of the card as the skin colour a lot of the time. Actually, tell a lie, I think there's a one, I mean, it's not exactly, you know, token representation isn't really representation, is it? There's a woman that looks to be like she could be maybe mixed race. Was she a black lady? I can't remember, but you know, it's a very white deck. I know some people said they complained that they didn't like the guys' haircuts because it made them think of like alt-right, like far right dudes. But to me, they just look like the, hang on, I'll try and find an example. Here, she looks like her features could possibly be mixed race, but not, you know, her skin, look at her hand is pale as fuck, so I'm like, I don't, you know, I would have liked to have seen some, what with it being modern. So people saying with the tattoos and the haircuts it made them think of like far right or alt-right Volkish type folks, you know, but these to me just look like hipsters from the mid to late noughts to me, around Hoxton and Shoreditch and Hackney. So if you know that area of London, you know what I'm talking about. It was very much a look. It sort of went into sort of the early teens as well. It's not so much a look you see now, but there was also a lot of like little twirly moustaches and stuff like that. It's the style has changed a little somewhat since then, but yeah. So that was that one, and I have used this one a wee bit. And then the third one that I got around the same time, again for about £11, was Le Tero Intel Vampiria. This came from France. This it just came just like this. It didn't have any plastic around it or anything. There were extra cards. At first I thought that there were cards missing, but there were loads of doubles of cards, and there was someone that messaged me who said that she had cards missing, so that apparently there had been a big mix up with this deck. So the reason I had extra cards was probably because some of the cards had been missed out of other decks. I don't know what the people that were printing it were doing. So I sent her my extra copy of, I think it was the 3 of Pentacles or the 2 of Pentacles, so that she could, or was it? It was a Pentacles card. I sent that to her. She ordered a pouch from me and I popped it in the package for her so that she could add it to her deck. But this deck is really interesting. It's the first vampire deck that I've really been drawn to. It doesn't have the whole male gaze thing like some of them does. It isn't overly cheesy like some of them are. You've got racial diversity, you've got nods to pop culture characters. So this is clearly David from the Lost Boys. I mean, come on. Or Billy Idol, whatever, you know. You've got my favourite Temperance card ever, because you can't tell me that it is not the indomitable Grace Jones, who is a fucking legend. That woman. Me and my husband are obsessed with Grace Jones. She's so cool. I love her. We've got, yeah, I like that we've got, you have two cards for each court card. So you have a male and female, or masc and femme presenting for each of the, you know, what would usually call the page. Knight, Queen and King, but they have different names. They're all in French. The book is in French. Apparently it's based on a French novel series. I'm hoping it'll be translated into English because, you know, vampire fiction. But yeah, it's a pip deck, I should say. Mirrors are what the cups are, and I used this a wee bit, especially during October. This was a great October deck. But you get everything from like characters that look like they are from hundreds of years ago to modern. Let's find a more modern. This is one of my favourites as well. This pirate, and also, you know, our flag means death. I just like pirates. Anyone else? But I'm so glad the BBC picked up the our flag means death for people in the UK to watch it, even though I've already seen it somehow. I might have sailed the high seas myself for that one. I'm trying to find a modern one. Oh, the Lovers is really good because you've got people through all ages, and you've got like what appears to be same sex and opposite sex couples, which I really like. So yeah, it's probably my favourite that I've seen. Yeah, so there's like modern people in here as well, but I can't, obviously, now that I've said that, I can't fucking find any. They're mostly old-timey. How metal is this? I just love a really metal-looking death card because they just remind me of like rock and metal posters and artwork of the 80s and early 90s. And I'm into it because I love me some metal. I'm a metalhead. Okay, then I had a little bit of a break from buying decks, and then in March, so this was January, February, March, I decided to pull the trigger on some indie decks that I had wanted, because I was like, do you know what, I've got all that money sitting here, and usually, I make it sound like I was sitting on a fortune. It wasn't a fortune, it was a little, you know, a couple of £100 or so, but it was like, I usually don't buy indie decks from overseas because the shipping and the taxes that you have to pay, the customs charges, end up coming to more than the deck itself a lot of the time. And now, you know, a lot of indie decks are getting really expensive as well. So it's just like, I cannot drop 150 quid on a deck, like for all included. Like I just can't justify it. Maybe one day. But anyway, so I bought Tom Benjamin's Multi Marseille. That was one of them from Make Playing Cards. It is a redrawn Marseille, but make it more inclusive, essentially. It's got the no blade backs. I love the cardstock. Again, the size is perfect, just like the Jean Noblet from Fleur Noir has the similar size. The coloration is classic to a Marseille, but, you know, we've got more diversity in the face cards. So see, this Justice looks like she's so over it. I love it. So here we've got, you know, body diversity and racial diversity, and I just really appreciate what Tom was doing here. And we need to see more. We need to see more of this in Marseille decks, so we can stop having just the same crusty old ones that we're used to seeing. And this is my go-to classic Marseille, and I knew it would become that. I knew it would. I knew it was going to slot right into my collection and become a heavily used deck. It shuffles beautifully. I can't riffle shuffle it at the moment because of my bum, but when I was riffle shuffling it, riffle shuffled really beautifully, and I immediately made a pouch for it because I think it came, did it come in a tuck box or shrink wrap? I can't remember, but yeah, I was like, no, it needs its own little home. Love this deck. The other one that I bought, the next one that I bought was the Pathfinder Oracle. I had wanted this for so long. I know that Beth Maiden stocked it, and I wish I just picked it up when Beth Maiden stocked it because it was £28. All in all, after the paying for it, the shipping, the customs, I paid almost £60 for how many cards? I can't remember how many cards are in this deck. I wish I'd just backed the bloody Kickstarter with the mini version. I would love the mini version. And I think it just goes into, yeah, it doesn't say. Anyway, it's like, it's not a huge number of cards. Why can't I find? It says it right there on the back. I just can't see for looking. 48 cards. I paid about £60 for 48 cards. But I don't regret it, because I love this deck. And you know, the reason the reason I didn't buy it initially or back the Kickstarter was because I was doing like depth years, and then I had, you know, not earning much money and couldn't really justify it, and also it has a very desert vibe to it. It feels very desert lands, a lot of it, not all of it obviously, but if you know, there's bison and desert scapes and things that don't really necessarily resonate with me as a resident of the UK, but actually I also almost see it now, like when I think about, you know, the work created by Swartz, the artist, and like, you know, you get a lot of these like third eye situations and like weird creepy stuff. I actually was like, well, maybe this is like some weird almost dreamscape world, and then all of a sudden the sand sort of started to make sense to me. That's how I'm like conceptualizing it for use. I mean, look at this. And this is great because it's square and you have the 4 different corners, and it's a bit like those other decks you see where when you add them up, the different corners, it sort of changes the meaning and the directionality and stuff. This is so much fun. I had such a good time like trying different ways of laying it out. I think I spoke about it in a live chat. The color palette is just delicious. Look at these purples and these teals and these burnt oranges and these midnight blues. It's a beautiful, beautiful deck. Again though, it was one that I used a lot. Probably, I think the last reading I remember properly doing with this was the beginning of June, and then I haven't really picked it up much again. Weird, but I really like looking at it. I'm like, God, I need to pull this out. It doesn't have a system, it's very intuitive, so I think you do have to sort of sit down and work out how you want to read it, but the square shape makes for a lot of fun, like playful reading opportunities. In the same time that I was ordering those in March, I ordered, finally, I was like, I'm getting it, I don't care. It's the Playful Heart Tarot by Kitten Chops. I treated myself, oh my god. And do you know what, because I was feeling so fragile and squishy, I was just in search of decks that felt comforting and heartwarming and supportive, and I bought an Oracle deck to go with this. This is the Linen cardstock. It's the same company that prints the Studio Usi decks. Oh, what's happened there? The bags are so much fun, and I love the artwork. It's pure joy in a deck, and I was doing readings with this alongside the Happy Tarot. It pairs really nicely with the Magical Forest, and then there's an Oracle, well, it's not an Oracle deck, it's an affirmation deck that I bought for support as well, and it's so cool. And now the artist is creating a Marseille called the Pipsqueak, and I'm like, take my money, shut up and take my money. I've been following the creation of it on Instagram, and it looks just, ugh, I want it so bad. I can't wait for that one to be ready. And then to go with that particular deck, I bought the Therapets 64 Emotional Support Animal cards by Kate Allen. And I never in a million years would have thought that I would have bought a deck like this, ever. I would have been like, what's wrong with you? Getting soft. But actually, I was just in this space where I needed coddling. I needed cotton to be wrapped up in cotton wool. I had to... it's really hard to explain, but it was just feeling very raw and fragile. And this doing the daily draws with this and the Happy Tarot, oh wow, like just really. And I'd leave the card on my desk, not on my desk, on my altar, right, so I could see it every time I walk past. And I'd make sure that if I was walking past and looking at it, that I would read the message on it to like hammer it home. So it's very like, you know, squidgy, fragile, bibby kind of deck, but sometimes that's what you need. I mean, what the hell? It's like a space squid, and I love it. I mean, I'm sure it's meant to be like a bioluminescent, but it looks like it's flying through space, and I'm kind of like, it's a space squid. Look! And the messages are just really sweet. Some of them I did have to redraw because they felt a little bit like, you know, everything will be fine, or and it's like, but sometimes not everything is fine, and I had to redraw, and I allowed myself to do that because I needed, like I said, I really needed to mollycoddle myself because things were not good. And the final indie deck that I ordered in that like selection of other decks that I'd ordered was the Hexa Tarot, which is my first MJ Cullinane deck. I've never been drawn to any of her other decks. I'm not usually a fan of the sort of style of artwork and the effect that it has, but there was just something about this one that I was drawn to. This was one that I pulled out for autumn, actually. I used it a little bit and I was like, this feels like an autumn deck. And I think I pulled it out at the end of August, beginning of September. And I've done some readings and some single card draws with this when I've just had it on my desk and pulled a single card. And I've not dug, because I know that it's like based on like, what was it, Swedish or like Scandi folklore maybe, or myths and legends, I don't know. So I haven't like really dug deep into it. I've just been reading it with my own like tarot knowledge. I think there's a workbook for this as well, which I've considered. It's become more readily available to buy. I think it's like a print on demand, and it's one that I've considered getting. If anyone has that, let me know if that's worth getting, because I do love a good like workbook, especially when they're like related to a particular deck. I've got today, arriving today at some point, I've actually got a year in the Wildwood arriving. I've pulled the trigger on it. I'm going to try and do a year in the Wildwood starting in January, so I've got that arriving finally. It's taken ages. Got a lot of postal strikes at the moment, but I support the strikes, so I'm going to try not to complain because what they're doing is important. The whole point of strikes is that they're meant to be inconvenient. And then yeah, I didn't buy anything for a couple of months, and then I think maybe the beginning of May, or maybe it was the end of April, beginning of May, I had another little spree because I was getting back into Marseille and pip decks. I think I spoke about this in the previous video I put up, where I had discovered Marilyn from Tarot Clarity and also Z Manzilla on TikTok, who reads with the Sesamero, and I was just suddenly really into like pips all over again. And so I was like, I'd already got this multi Marseille, and I was like, I need some more. I finally got the Tarot de Maria Celia, because again, it's been on my list for ages, but it popped up at a good price. So I do that a lot of the times. I'll like have stuff on my list, and if it pops up at a really good price and sale, I'll nab it. It's quite often, mass market decks. Some of them, have been out for like 2, 3, 4 years, and they all finally go up at a good price, and I'm like, yoink. I can be patient. But yeah, the only thing I spoke about this one is the only thing that bugs me is that everyone in it is blonde and white, and I'm like, but why? But it's a great travel deck. I did some on the go readings at my sister and at her birthday garden party, so like at garden events where I was able to actually socialize outside in the sunshine. First socializing in a really long time. This was handy because the tin, small, really enjoyed reading with this. Another one that I bought was the Tarot de Marseille by Victoria Dorsch. Dorsch, I don't know how you pronounce it. Dorsch. This is a deck that I ordered in from France. I bought it on Etsy, and it is a mages only. And again, I never thought I would buy a mages only deck ever, honestly. But it's all Marilyn from Tarot Clarity's fault, and Serge Pirot, because they often read in the French style. Well, Serge is French, where you read with only the mages. Alexander Mustruck reads often with the mages only as well. He's got a really good video about a reading method that he uses. But yeah, I was using the tirage en croix, and often just using the mages only. Look at that, isn't that beautiful? It's stunning. I mean, I would 100% love a full deck, but because I had been reading so much with minors only, and actually it was driving me bananas because I kept separating my Pip and Marseille decks, the majors and the minors apart from each other so that I could read with just the majors, but then sometimes I'd want to use all of them, so I was getting annoyed having to constantly separate and redraw in my decks. So that's why I was like, well, let's just buy a majors only. I would like another one. I saw a beautiful one. I can't remember who. It was expensive. That was about £50, but it was all hand cut and finished, and it was like in black and gold, and it was stunning. And I think it was from France as well. And I was like, oh, if I came into like a little bit more money, I would definitely be purchasing that because it was just beautiful. But I bought another Pip deck actually that was on, again, reduced to £8.50 or £8 in the sale, and it is the Kawaii Tarot. I actually edged my copy myself because it was all janky and fucked up on the corners and catching. So I used my largest corner rounder, which is a centimetre, 10mm, to smooth it off. And actually now it feels really nice. There is a printing error on one of the cards. I think it's one of the ones. It says it's like the 9 of wands and it's still got 8 on it. But other than that, like, you know, the decks that end up with printing errors turn out to be the ones that people try to nab 20 years down the line because they're like, oh, it's the original printing with the error in it. And people try and seek out the wonky one. So I kept, you know, I don't know if it's been, I mean, this deck has been out for a couple of years, so I imagine this is still the first printing because surely they would have corrected it. That was the issue with the Tattoo Tarot. There was one of the cards, one of the swords cards, that didn't have the correct number of swords in it, and they corrected it in further printings. So, but loving this, and would often do readings combining this with like the Wandering Oracle decks because the sizes are really similar. Because sometimes when I do a tirage en croix, I do what Marilyn from Tarot Clarity does, which is add up all the cards and then have like the essential card, which will be a major arcana. But sometimes that card is already in the reading, so it's good to have a second deck to then lay that down. And sometimes I do a reading where I lay down initially, and this is something that Serge Perot does with the Tirage en Croix, I think, and with some other readings that he does. Check out his website, his blog, it's really good. Where he will lay initially all majors, and then you do a second round in those positions, but with the minors for further information. So yeah, having a couple of decks that you can separate out and what have you, really, really handy. So, okay, wow, this is getting quite long. What are we at? Over half an hour already. I'm gonna have to count how many are at the end. Okay, I think the next deck I bought not long after that was the Archetypal Tarot, or Tarot Archetypal. Again, this is a French deck. The book is in French. The titles are in French. This deck, the colours in this, look at this back. This was just calling to me. This, again, limited colour palette, really stylised artwork, really beautiful. Almost Vector-like. I love this Wheel of Fortune. And every single face card features a black person, and I love that. I mean, there's the clown faces, but I believe that they are all people of colour behind the masks, from what I can see from the eye, like from what you can see through the masks. But it's just really regal, and like like obviously it's, you know, it's meant to be regal, it's a king, but like it has this, you know, oh, it's just stunning. Look at these. Really interesting colour choices. I love the gold with this lovely like there's this lovely red. It's, I can't explain, it's not a tomato red and it's not quite a true red, but it's they just play really nicely together. And then there's like the deepest, darkest indigo. It's not black, it's like this lovely indigo colour. Oh, love it. So yeah, this is a great great deck. The face cards are very facey, as in like they are just, you know, the heads, it's not the full bodies. The horses are great. The knights are just the horses that would be ridden by the knights, and they are, I mean, how cool is this? Very stylized, stunning, very simple, easy reader. Le Justice, Lenormand. Anyway, yeah, it's L'Etoile. Just love it, love it, love it, love it. Highly recommend it if you like to read Marseille. It's just different, you know, and it's nice to see people of colour in a Marseille-inspired deck. It's really refreshing, and I would like to see more of it, please. Thank you very much. Okay, let's see. What else have we got? Okay, then later in May, the end of May, beginning of June, I had another little spree. There were 2 decks that I had been eyeing up that went on a really good price. So again, this one was reduced to about £12. This one was about £11 or £12. Yoink. So this is the mass market version of the Intuitive Night Goddess Tarot. I still keep meaning to edge it in black. I haven't edged it, but I love that it's not glossy, like it just photographs really nicely. But this is a stunning deck. It features all femme presenting goddess characters. It's lush, it's sensual, it's, I don't know, it's just beautiful. Come on, camera. I love the sort of collage-y feel about it. It's slightly wacky with this sort of spacey, like lightsaber-y type ones, and it's just gorgeous. Again, this was one that felt more autumnal to me, so I think I started to break this out again towards the end of August, because there was a chunk of time where I didn't use tarot as much because I got quite sick. So I think it wasn't until the end of August, beginning of September, where I was like really picking up tarot again, and this was one of them, because it just felt like, because I'm like, oh, it's autumn, the knights are going to start drawing in. Night goddess, I don't know, it's just where my head went. Really, really lovely deck. The next one is the Queer Tarot. Oh my god, this deck. I love this deck so much. This deck, if this deck was available back in the 90s when I first got into tarot, this would have been the one I picked. Hands down. It's deliberately made to look like 90s zines. It just looks like my teenage years. You know, there's some decks that really epitomise a certain era. The Vanessa Tarot has a sort of 90s feel to me, 90s teen feel to me. This has a 90s teen feel to me. Just like, this just feels like it could have just come straight out of the 90s, honestly. And I love it. I love that we've got, I mean, look at these doggos. Oh, it's not showing. Come on, camera. Look. Love them. I love the mad, like, psych backs. I love this whole, you know, in the 90s there was this whole like late 60s early 70s revival. In the 90s you had like D-Light, Groovers in the Heart, you had like the B-52s picking up, like there was lots of stuff going on. I remember people wearing catsuits, you had Austin Powers. It was this whole thing, like I literally remember people walking around in stuff like this. But I just love it. The cardstock's a little thick and it's hard to get my hands around it, and I can't riffle shuffle it since I hurt my thumb. But yeah, I just have to overhand or use the dice tower to roll using dice. But I love it, I love it, I love it. Yeah, I was gonna say it's got like good body diversity, it's got different ethnicities, different abilities. Really, really love that. And then the other one, this one I bought because I wanted the Telesma Tarot basically, but me could not afford the yeah, my budget could not afford the that. So I was like, fine, I will get the Voyager Tarot instead, which is like the OG Telesma style, like an analog collage. It's very glossy and plasticky, which I usually hate, but it like totally works for this deck. Like it fits the vibe. The backs are very sort of and I've got the large guidebook and the book of poetry inspired by this, and it's just wild. It's just wild. There is so much symbolism packed into each card, and every single piece of symbolism is there. Everything is there for a reason. Nothing is accidental. Nothing is just a style choice. It's all very, very deliberate, and it goes into great detail about all of that in the like extra book that you can get. So if you have this deck but you don't have the bigger book, highly recommend getting the bigger book. But yeah, this is one that again started off, you know, guns a blazing, working with, and then fell off the wagon because actually, yeah, I got quite sick and was unable to like even focus on, couldn't even remember what I did in the morning, which is still an issue I'm having. But yeah, it was just, I was not in a position to be like reading tarot or reading anything or. But a little later in the summer, I did pick up, before I got sick, I picked up the Titania's fortune cards. I remember the original version on the different card stock was slightly different coloration, I believe, from the 90s, I want to say, early noughties. I used to see it in like all the esoteric shops in London. And you know, the reason I never picked this one up initially is because it's a 36 card Lenormand, but I like the option of having, you know, more people cards. So there's obviously just a man and a woman. It's very gender binary and it's very, very straight, right? And a lot of the people in my life are trans, non-binary, genderqueer, and are not straight. I'm not straight. Like, so are these all upside down? No, they're not all upside down. Some of them are upside down. But so I like to have other people cards, but at the moment I'm not really reading for other people. So, and actually it's not even just that. Like if I'm reading for myself, I'm not always reading about romantic stuff or my personal relationships, or I might want, you know, sometimes you need another femme or masc card because it's a reading about someone's boss and their boss is like also, you know, I don't know, also a woman or whatever. So I feel like it's just a real short-sighted. I get really annoyed when I see modern decks being made, Lenormand decks, and they don't just add a couple of extra people cards or just make the cards gender neutral. Just make it gender neutral, or provide extra cards, please, please and thank you. We're in the 21st century. We're well into the 21st century now. Trans people, non-binary, gay people, lesbians, polyam, and you know, pansexual, asexual people, bisexual people. We exist. Perceive us, acknowledge us, include us, please. Okay, so I then also around the same time bought the Magical Tarot, purely because I found it was a good deal and it's Stacey Barrington's artwork, and I love Stacey Barrington because the Sacros Tarot is one of my all-time favourite tarot decks in the world ever, and probably always will be. So it's like, I'm going to need that, and I love the colours. The cardstock, however, feels real, like even just as I'm moving it in my hand. Like although these ones are quite thick cardstock, and this one will be one that's quite thick cardstock, it doesn't feel icky when you like sort of move it around in your hands. This one feels kind of cardboardy and icky, and it really disappoints me because Stacey Barrington's artwork deserves more than this. This is the kit because this accompanies the book that Robin Valentine wrote, which is called Tarot Magic or Magical Tarot. You're right, boo boo, what are you doing? And then they brought out a kit with a deck which features, you know, Stacey Barrington's artwork. I just love it, the artwork. It just, initially when I got it I was still trying to like riffle shuffle, but it doesn't riffle shuffle very well at all. But you know, again, it's a moot point for me at the moment because my hand is fucked. So try and slow down a bit. I'm always like, why am I going a mile a minute? Slow down, man. Come on, fuck yours. Here we go. Look at that little magician. But look at the colours. Purples and lovely rosy pinks and gorgeous sort of blue greens and grey, blue greys. Oh, I'm turning it the wrong way. Look at this. It's so cute. It's a slightly different sort of more simplistic style from Stacey Barrington, but that doesn't mean it's any less good. It's just she's, you know, sometimes you do more sketchy doodly stuff, sometimes you do more intricate stuff when you're an artist, right? It just depends. Depends what the brief asks for, depends what mood you're in, I don't know. But yeah, you can tell that it's her, you can still tell that it's Stacey Barrington. It's still very much her style. And then I didn't buy anything for months after that. I think this was like June, May, June. I can't remember. And then I didn't buy my next deck until the middle of October. So I had a good 4 months where I didn't buy a single deck. But I decided that I was going to buy myself a Halloween present, as I often do. Because Halloween is basically goth Christmas to me, and I was like, I'm gonna treat myself, and I purchased the Shadowland Tarot, finally, after 2 years after its release, from Monica Badusky. I finally pulled the trigger on it. And the thing that really sold me on this finally was the 3 Girls 1 Deck episode, and Heather was talking about this in such a way. I was like, do you know what, fuck it, you know, it's been on and off my list and I wasn't sure, but now I'm just gonna just buy it. And I actually got it for a really good deal. I looked it up after that episode. I couldn't watch all of it because I had to go make dinner, and then after dinner I started looking it up to try and find a good deal for this, and I think, was it Wordery or Book Depository? But I got it for a pretty good price. And oh my god, I am so glad that I got this deck, because I love it. I mean, I always knew that I loved the artwork. That was a given. It was just whether I needed it in my collection. Yes, I needed it in my collection. The book is brilliant. I'm like 2/3 of the way through that one now. I'm just trying to think, because I was even reading some of it last night, in fact. I just love it. I just love it so much. I've done readings with it, but I haven't done a deep dive with it. I do have a journal to do like a full-on tarot bound with this. But because I've just been so slammed with this shop stuff and trying to get everything done before the, you know, I've just, you know, I'm a one-woman show basically. It's a lot of work. I haven't had time to really dig into this in the way that I wanted, and actually I wanted to finish reading the guidebook before I started doing the tarot bound for it, because I kind of like to read the whole guidebook before I do a tarot bound. I don't know, it's a real anal thing about like the process that I've developed. So yeah, really happy about that one. And then I saw again, this was released, the Pocket Animal Spirit from Wild Unknown by Kim Kranz. I don't have the regular sized version of this, but I do have the pocket size of the Wild Unknown, which I have come to use and like more than my OG like indie version, because it's small. And I think because I know the deck enough, I don't need it to have the big one, because I know all the line work and everything in the small, like the small one. So but yeah, I've only done a couple of draws with this now. I did my first one the other day, which was the Stingray. But yeah, it's got a really nice selection of animals. It's got a really nice, it's got like suits, as it were, almost. I haven't read the guidebook yet. I keep meaning to sit down. I've really wanted to sit down and read it, but I keep prioritising the Shadowland book over it if I'm going to read a guidebook, because I just want to get the Shadowland done so I can get on with my tarot bound with this. So, but I have obviously read the entry for the couple of cards that I have pulled for it. So yeah, really enjoying it. Love the size. Love a tin. You know, what can I say? Cardstock, shuffles nicely. Love the like hollow accents on it. Love. And finally, the next deck that I'm about to show you, which is in just a bag, the bag that came with the 25th anniversary edition of the Enchanted Tarot, in fact, but I don't put that deck in there. I have my own handmade pouch for that one. But I didn't have I don't want to leave this deck in its box, because it's the Raven's Prophecy Tarot, and it's one of these numbers. There's still a few of these I need to make pouches for, so that they're not, you know, the Voyager Tarot being one, because it's a bit of a pain trying to get that in and out of its thing, but you know, it's one of those. Oh, I've taken the insert out because I'm going to throw it away, but I'm going to keep the box because I like to use them for storing things. They're just really handy for stuff, and sometimes you can decorate them and turn them into cool things like travel waters and stuff like that. So I always keep stuff like, I know people say they throw these boxes. I keep them and use them for storage, and you could always like cover them in paper and decorate them if you don't want them to look like tarot boxes. I don't know. I just reuse, recycle, right? And it's magnetic, so I'm like, I can't throw it, it's got a magnet in it, I don't know. But yeah, it's the Raven's Prophecy Tarot, and this is the first deck I have ever, no, that's a lie, I always say that I've ever rebought. That's not true. I think I've said before, I've rebought the Shaman Caselli Beginner's Tarot Kit several times over the last, I haven't rebought it in the last 5 years, but previous to that, like late 90s, through to the teens, I had rebought that deck kit several times. I even had the one that had the black and white version that you could colour as well. It came with 2 decks, and I subsequently always gifted them on to people that want to learn the tarot, because it's basically a Smith-Waite clone. This is before I ever had a Smith-Waite deck. So I have rebought tarot decks in the past, but because I kept giving them away. This is the first time I've rebought a deck, not because I want a backup copy, but because I fucked up my OG copy, and I just realised I should have got my OG. My OG copy is down here in the drawer, because I'm now using it to put into parcels for customers. But basically what I did was, initially I wanted to trim it so that I still just had the titles, and I did that, and it was great. And then I started using a corner rounder, but I had both corner rounders out on the table at the same time, which was a rookie mistake, because I was using a small 5mm corner rounder, which meant that when because I had trimmed it around, I wanted to trim it so it was even. I didn't want to have this, like, a lot of people will trim this bit off but leave the bottom bit here, so you end up with this red line at the bottom. I didn't want that, so I trimmed off the backs so that it would come just under here. So when I used the 5mm corner rounder, it was fine. But some of the titles are longer than others. So when the title comes right up to the very edge, well, this is not a very good example, but there are examples. You know, if you're using a larger corner rounder, it cuts off a little bit of the words, and that's what I did. I was using a 5mm, went away, did something, came back, started carrying corner rounding it, not realizing I had picked up the chunkier one, the 10mm, which I use on like my I used on my Kawaii Tarot that I've just shown you. I used it on my Tarot of the Magical Forest, and that's fine. I want those decks to have nice smooth chunky edges because it suits the artwork and the feel of the deck, if that makes sense. So yeah, I ended up with this. And I was like, oh, this actually looks awesome. So I put the symbols on with the Roman numerals and then like the elemental symbols. And I backed it because I couldn't deal with the back just still was driving me mad. So I backed it in this lovely sort of copper colour. And it was, I can't remember if I edged it in orange or black. I literally cannot remember if I edged it in orange and then I edged it in black. Anyway, so I was using it, fine. And then one day I had the genius fucking idea to use a paint pen that matched the copper of the backs, a copper paint pen. But what that did was it stuck all of the cards together. So trying to shuffle this deck, it just clumps. You cannot shuffle it. It will not happen. You can't riffle shuffle. It just does not work. And I was gutted because I actually think it looks really cool. It's like this chunky little, just, you know. Anyway, so it really upset me that I couldn't use it. I've tried multiple times of like soaking it in like different types of powders, diamesius, that type of earth, and like cornstarch and all sorts of stuff, and it hasn't worked. It works for a short while and then eventually the stickiness comes back through, and I kept putting off buying a replacement copy because I'm like, why buy a deck that I already have when I could buy a new deck? But then it's so stupid because, like, yeah, I have this deck but I can't fucking use it, and what is the point? And I always say a deck's raison d'être is to be used. So I gave up the ghost. I saw it for a really good price. I got it for like £12 off, and I went yoink, that was it. I saw it for that price. I was like, I don't think I'm going to see it for that price for a very long time, if at all, again, and I bought it. And so this is, oh, my tummy's rumbling. My tummy is always grumbling in my videos. And finally I pulled the trigger. Oh, what is going on? What is going on? I've got him upside down. And so yeah, I've been reading with this bad boy, and I'm like, oh my god, why didn't I do this sooner? Now I know why I loved this deck. And I'm leaving it as it is, because actually now I don't mind the borders. Back in the day I was like, this needs a borderectomy, I can't be dealing with the orange. But actually I quite like it now. I'm like, yeah, now I don't even have to you know, bother backing it or trimming it or anything. I'm just going to leave it as it is. I've never read the Raven cycle books. Maybe one day I will, but I don't think you really need to be able to use the deck, honestly. And I love that it's quite pippish. I love the tones. And yeah, I'm going to be using this throughout the winter. It feels very much obviously an autumn deck, but also just dark months deck. Look at this, it's so like stunning. Stunning. For these two dragons. So yeah, I'm really happy that I actually finally bought a new copy. But now I have, say it, don't spray it, oh my god, 2 copies of the book. But the new copy of the book has like pages that are joined together at the bottom. They've not been cut properly, so they're all like stuck together. So I'm actually using my original copy of the book to work with this. I don't know what I'm going to do with the extra book, to be honest. Anyway, that was nearly a whole hour of me rambling about the decks that came into my collection in 2022. And we haven't even had Christmas yet. Yes, Christmas, yes. Words. I need to go now because I can't speak. But yeah, Christmas hasn't happened yet. Yuletide hasn't happened yet. So there may be more coming into the collection. But I might do like a little Christmas haul. I don't know. I always feel weird doing Christmas hauls because I'm like, look what I got. I don't know. But then I enjoy watching other people's hauls and I don't think about that about other people. But I guess we're always way more like harsh on ourselves than we are on others. I don't know. So I might do a Christmas. I might wait until January to see what I can potentially get for my birthday. I mean, I might not get any decks for my birthday or for Christmas, but yeah. Anyway, that is all. That is all the decks that came into my collection this year. By far the most that have come into my deck since about 2017, 2018. I think 2017 was probably my year that I bought the most decks. So, you know, I was due a catch up. I'm not going to feel bad about it. You know, I haven't been able to spend my money on the things that I would usually, you know, pre the panini. So, you know, I'm spending it on decks and books. And that makes me happy. And sometimes the odd takeout, the odd takeaway from really cool, like I really enjoy Temple of Hackney, the Hogless Roast, and there's a really great Italian family run pizza place down the road from us that also do vegan cheese. So yeah, sometimes you just need to treat yourself to the things that will make you happy, because everything else is awful and otherwise you would just crumble and wither. So yeah, I've been trying to keep myself going via consumerism and it's kind of worked. I shouldn't say that, should I? No, but like you know, I've enjoyed using these decks. Some of them obviously I haven't, like the Cthulhu one, but the ones that I have, I've really enjoyed it. Could I have enjoyed using the decks that I already have? Yes, but I didn't want to just use the decks I already had. So yeah, there are a bunch of decks on my wish list for next year. There's a bunch of decks upcoming. I'm still waiting on the hoping the Fyodor Pavlov Tarot is meant to be out this month here in the UK, but it seems to be people are struggling to get a hold of that in the US even. I still haven't received my pre-ordered copy of fucking Mastering Magic by Matt Oren. That came out like in October and they're like, we're having problems getting this. I'm like, hurry up, where is it? I should try and order it from somewhere else maybe and cancel the original order because I want to read it. But yeah, there's a bunch of decks that I want. There's a bunch of decks that came out last year and this year that I still want. But, you know, I don't have infinite money or infinite room, or infinite time. So, just as none of us do, really. But some people do kind of have infinite money. Yeah, but I'm not going to go on a rant about why billionaires shouldn't exist at the end of the video. Okay, thank you so much for watching. If you made it all the way to the end, bloody well done. Give yourself a pat on the back and treat yourself to something nice like a biscuit and a cup of tea, because that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go have some, it's 25 past 11, so I'm going to have some slightly late 11s, and it's going to be a snack bar or a couple of Oreos and a cup of tea. That's what I'm going to treat myself for making it to the end of all of this stack of decks. So yeah, thank you for watching. I appreciate you. Take care of yourself, and I will see you in the next one. Yeah, ciao.